familiar bell from Pat Anderson, passed down with love from Andy Anderson. So I want to thank you all for joining us today and for, what was I going to say? Figuring out the technology. And today we have Adele and Richard Thompson giving the pledge and the invocation. So let me share my screen. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, who's giving the pledge? It was,
I believe I am.
yes, you are. All right.
Okay, if you all would join me, put your hands over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dick. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Next we're going to go to Adele, and he's going to provide our invocation today.
Yep, I just got off mute. The invocation today is really to celebrate the way you all relate to one another. It's to celebrate you as wonderful Rotarians. So I find that all of you like one another, you have a lot of respect for one another and help one another, which is a really great feature. And you trust one another, which is a way to really conduct the Rotarian business and to have a lifelong fellowship. And working well together, as we can see from this Zoom, we all come together no matter what kind of stumbling stones we have or we don't have a president. Everybody rolls up their sleeves and they come by and they do a wonderful amount of work to keep the club going. This really beats, in my opinion, the four-way test. It's a much better way of really describing the generosity that you all bring to the table. Every week we meet, or now Zoom in, I see a renewed friendship and a sense of excitement, whether we are testing how the mute works or who is that on that telephone, is exciting one way or another. Impressive is the way that all past presidents, which comprise the majority of this screen in here, have been helping and alternating to make this year fun and having good meetings and great speakers. So good for you all. This crowd is mostly, as I said, comprised of you, past presidents, that cause it to happen and to seamlessly come together. But we all understand the hard work that you all provide to make this community come together. Thank you all for doing that. Lastly, on a personal note, I wish to thank you all for the trust, and I spoke about trust a bit earlier, and the help in assigning me some roles and leadership positions, which I enjoyed very much in the past number of years, 3 to 4 years since I joined. So thank you for coaching me, nurturing me, accepting me, and for all the work that you do. Thank you, Ali, and it's back to you.
All right, that was lovely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Adele.
You're welcome, thank you. And London is a special feature today that we all celebrate. I should not let that one go uncelebrated. Thank you, London.
Well, I was just going to ask if there are any other special guests. I clearly have one, my daughter, London, who you all met in utero. She was our first official member who was pregnant, Rotarian. So thanks for joining us, London, and thanks for getting your mom on Zoom here. How you guys doing? It's nice to see Dawn and Roz. Hi, guys.
How are you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you guys. Hi, Bill. I think we said hi to everyone, Chris and Jim. So I want to thank Marcia. Thank you very much, Marcia, for being the greeter and the Zoom hostess with the mostest. And thank you very much, Dick, for the pledge, and Adele for that, again, lovely, lovely invocation. So here we are. It is the first meeting of May. Rabbit, right? Does anyone have, I was looking at our PowerPoint, and let me just scroll down here. I think now I've lost you guys.
We don't see the screen for the PowerPoint, Ali.
No, and I think I've lost you guys somehow. Hang on,
That's
I have to
okay.
figure this out now. Oh my goodness, London, I might need you to come help me.
Okay, we're here, Allie. You haven't lost us.
There you are. Okay, there you are. Okay. Does anyone have good news they want to share? We didn't have any planted. Well, Diane, do you want to share a little bit about Mark Rogo, since we, it says Allie turned record on now. So,
I
okay.
already turned it on. I turned it on already.
Oh, okay.
That was your reminder. I forgot last week.
Diane, good. Are you there?
Diane?
Unmute. Let me see if I can stop share and find her.
Okay, thanks,
There you are.
Allie. So first off, Don Park sends his greetings to everyone. He has a little trouble. He doesn't have a computer, so he can't do Zoom, and he's not comfortable calling in, so he calls me every week and says to say hello. May 17th, our speech contest for Pageant of the Arts takes place, and they'll be sending me the Zoom information in order for us to watch if any of us are interested. As you know, Mark Rogo, as I said in the weekly newsletter, won the service award this year from Rotary International. He was one of 7 people to receive it. He's not with us today, so I thought we'd celebrate it next week with a nice fine. Birthdays, Sally Brandt, Marcia Hunt, Richard Thompson, Carol Rosenstein, and myself. Anniversaries, Tom Barron and Mark Rogo, both are celebrating with their lovely wives this month. And Rotary anniversaries, Don Parks and Tom Barron, which is a $25 fine for everybody, Terry. And Ed Jackson, I just don't know. That's still up in the air.
Is Ed on
Other
the
than that,
phone?
pardon?
Is Ed here? I don't think so.
Yes, he is.
Ed's on, isn't he?
He is on.
It is on.
Ed, we need you to
He's in space.
solve, when is your actual birthday? Facebook said it was yesterday.
Ed, unmute yourself.
Oh, well, it should be in the club directory for unless he takes one too.
Okay, so 2 more quick things. First, if you haven't paid your bills that Terry sent out recently, please get them paid. We want to use the money to give to COVID-19 projects on the West Side, so we need you to get your dues paid. And lastly, but certainly most important, happy Mother's Day to all you beautiful ladies out there. That's it. Allie, you're on.
Right?
Hey, Diane, question.
Sure.
You said get the dues paid. Wouldn't the COVID-19 money come from one of the foundation?
Yeah, but that's, yes. But we still need the dues paid, Tom, because that's
Well, I
part of
understand
what
that.
all goes into it.
I
Tom's
understand
Terry,
that.
Part of the money-
part of your dues is a foundation contribution. And we transfer those
Okay.
monies to the foundation as you pay them.
Well, that's right, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Do we have a particular problem with
Ed
you?
Gall and Eleanor have joined us. Eleanor,
Recently, Tom, a few. Sorry, I'm done.
I have a question. Have the things get sent out, the invoices, like on email or something?
Yes,
Terry?
the invoices were sent on April. They were sent approximately a little over a week ago through Club Runner, as they always are.
Okay.
So you should have received
I
your
think
invoices,
I
and you
got-
should have also received an email from me telling you that they went out and letting me know if you didn't get it. So if you got neither of those emails, your information in Club Runner must be wrong, or you're spamming us out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Allie, take it away.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask Ed Gold if he wanted to sing a song, but it looks like he just got up and left. So he'll be back in just a minute, I'm sure. But hi to Dr. Myers, Eleanor, and Jim. See that you joined us. Was there anybody else that looked like they joined? All right. Brian, is the speaker going to be calling in about 10 minutes? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Allie, I have an announcement.
Oh, yes, please, Tom.
I sent out the member handbook, a draft of it, about a week and a half ago to members of the committee, various ones. I know Ron and Adele and Gordon, and I've received responses. But anyone who's on that committee who's received a copy of it, if you don't get it back by tomorrow, Friday, you're out of luck. And they had some very good suggestions. I've incorporated them into the draft. And anyone who would like to see a copy but hasn't seen one, I will send it out when I send out the final draft. Just email me requesting a copy of it. But it's 99.9% complete. So all we have to do is publish it. And Phil, you were going to get me an estimate. I don't see him there, but an estimate of what your vendor would charge for it.
Yeah, no, I just want to know if you wanted to do a spiral bound or if you want to be more like.
Let's do a stitch. Let's do a stitch.
Stitch? Okay, that's all I need to know.
And I'll get a couple estimates from other places and we'll go with it.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
What?
Then you go ahead and have it printed. I'm not gonna pit my guy against other guys. I'm not going to do it. So
well, how do I know what your guy?
He's gonna get the best price. If you can find someone who's $1 cheaper, fine, take them. But I'm not doing this back and forth stuff. So up to you.
Yeah, Tom, I think it's a wonderful document, and I'm grateful that Ron was able to pour it into PDF. It makes it much easier actually to transact and read. And if there are any kind of questions with the printing, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Okay, let's move on. This is more of a board issue. Allie, take it away.
Okay, yeah, we'll take the rest of this online. Thanks for both of your efforts and what you've done to coordinate. Okay, Ed Gold.
Hi.
Hi, I know it's kind of on the spot, but did you want to lead an impromptu song? I saw an American flag on your shirt. If you want to sing God Bless America with us.
Well, why don't we sing to memorialize, we'll sing McDonald's. Old McDonald had a farm, and on his farm he had some swimming with a splash splash here because we have a swimmer speaking, right?
Yes. Whose phone is ringing?
Let me start. Old McDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on his farm he had some swimmers, E-I-E-I-O. With a splash, splash here and a splash, splash there. Here a splash, there a splash, everywhere a splash, splash. Old McDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. That's the song. It's a song.
Tom.
It's not a song.
Tom, you're calisthenics there. So. All right. Well, we have about 5 more minutes till our esteemed guest joins us.
By the way, I could say one thing. I went over to Lenny Friedman's jewelry store, Sarah Leonard, and Lenny came out and gave me a whole big bag of all the sheet music that his father had.
You don't mean Lenny.
You mean David?
David, rather, right there, because Lenny had apparently a collection of sheet music. And so I got an email this morning from David saying if I wanted to come over and pick it up, so I have to go through it. I haven't opened the bag, but I guess Lenny liked to sing songs. And of course, he was the preeminent director. Anything I learned, it was from Lenny.
Blessed is in Sonny's heart, yep. Well, thank you for bringing that back. I remember my very first Rotary meeting. I went back to my office and asked my assistant to look up the words to your grand old flag. And she said, oh, it doesn't matter. They change the song every week. So, else joined us here? Hi, Steve Day. And Steve's iPhone. Who's that down at the bottom? Oh, Steve Scherer. Hi, Steve Scherer.
He's on mute.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure I saw.
And hear him.
I'm told that you can press your space bar when you want to unmute yourself, and as long as you hold it down, you're unmuted. And when you let it up, then your mute goes back on.
Great idea. I just tested it.
It's not working. I just hit the mute on the microphone on the bottom left hand of my screen.
Steve's on his iPhone though.
All right, well, what are you all missing from our glorious faculty center? Not the parking.
The chicken lunch.
I got an email from the faculty center saying that they were going to use this time to redo the kitchen. So they're tearing the kitchen apart to rebuild it. So I imagine they probably won't open until the kitchen's rebuilt. But what do I know? You know, they just send me this letter, you know, telling me about this. And they're gonna redo the bathrooms at the south end of the faculty center also during while UCLA is closed.
Well, that will definitely make the Cobb salad much better.
Yeah. And maybe the chicken cage too.
Now, Brian,
Yes.
is the market going to go back to its all-time high, and if so, when?
Oh, it absolutely will. When is the more difficult answer thing to answer? So we're looking good. There's businesses that have definitely been disrupted and may not survive, but there's also businesses that we think will snap back. And there's also businesses that have not only been surviving, they've been thriving during all of this. So it's really kind of a mixed bag. I think the most curious thing is how will our behavior change going forward? Will we fly as much? Will we, I don't think we're gonna rush and take a cruise anytime soon. You know, I mean, what we were talking about with
the
kitchen,
go to the wayside.
with the kitchen, how long are we going to keep these Zoom meetings up? So anyway, things, I can't complain. I think we're very blessed. We looking at China, I think we're all very lucky to be born in this country. So anyway, I have a lot of gratitude right now.
And one quick question, Brian. I guess when we were down at the all-time low, we've probably regained 50% of the loss. Somewhere in the middle now?
More than the middle. The NASDAQ is break even for the year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And interestingly, you typically think of technology as kind of more aggressive, but technology was really aptly ready for this whole thing. I talked to a client who works at Google, and things pretty much feel the same. He's already used to doing conferencing using his computer, and you know, he just plopped his laptop at home, and life is normal for him. It's interesting.
Why would a company send an employee on an airplane to go somewhere, go to a restaurant, hotel bill for a meeting? Why not just Zoom it clear across the country? And so I think that speaks well for technology and doesn't speak well for the airlines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, stock market, according to my phone, it's up 208 points right now.
Wow.
Yesterday.
Brian, is your guest on?
Let me see.
Because it's 12:50 and I want to make sure and give him ample time
You
to
guys hear me?
You know what? Why don't I go ahead and read his bio, okay, while we wait for him to get on. And I don't know, when we distributed the information about today, did we also send out the video information for the Bud Greenspan film, 16 Days of Glory?
On the website.
Did that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I'll do, maybe we can send that out to make sure everyone sees it. His story is fantastic. Can you hang on 1 second? I want to make sure this isn't my caller calling me.
Go ahead.
What's going on here now?
So Allie? Allie? Allie?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone knows a good place to get a haircut.
We must be Facebook friends.
Have you asked your wife?
That's what
I'm afraid, Kurt. I'm afraid to.
That's where I got my haircut.
He said a good place. He said a good place.
Steve, you can come to Kansas City and get a haircut here. I just got one yesterday.
Oh, you look sharp, Chris.
Hey, thanks.
You can tell who are angry wives and who are not by looking at the husband's hair.
And I got a speakeasy haircut, but I'm not going to out the person. So, but they're out there. There's a whole underground economy, which is kind of interesting.
Are you ready to go, Brian?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read the bio, and I'm going to text my speaker, let him know we are ready.
London, stand up and show us your haircut.
So the topic for today is the other F word. And I would encourage everybody, we'll make sure that you get a copy of the videos. 16 Days of Glory is the video. And our speaker today is John Moffet. He's a two-time U.S. Olympic swimmer, or he was on the swimming team, and a former world record holder in the breaststroke. He's also a three-time Emmy Award-winning television producer. John started swimming when he was 11 years old and quickly moved through the ranks, making the 1980 Olympic team before he even had his driver's license. However, the United States boycotted the Moscow Games due to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Despite this disappointment, John finished up high school in Southern California and headed north to Stanford University. Once on the farm, he broke his first of two world records on his way to making the 1984 Olympic team. Unfortunately, he tore his leg muscle in the first Olympic event, the 100-meter breaststroke, finishing fifth. John was forced to withdraw from the other two events and spent much of the remaining year rehabilitating his leg. But his college career was far from over. He went on to win 5 individual NCAA Division I titles and 2 NCAA team championships. During his senior year, John was co-captain, honored as a top scholar athlete in the Pac-10, and received the NCAA Top 4 award, honoring the 6 most outstanding student athletes in America. Since then, he's been elected into the Stanford Athletic Hall of Fame and the Pac-12 All-Century team, and is a recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal for his sacrifices during the 1980 Olympic boycott. John's misfortune in the 1984 Olympics turned into an opportunity with a legendary documentarian, Bud Greenspan, told his story in the featured film 16 Days of Glory. John, so inspired by Bud, decided to pursue a career in entertainment. Since then, he produced hundreds of hours of television for networks ranging from CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, to cable channels Discovery, TLC, VH1, ESPN, HBO. But John's highest professional honor was winning 3 Primetime Emmy Awards while producing 7 seasons of The Amazing Race. John remains involved in the Olympic movement and is president of the Southern California Olympians and Paralympians Association. He serves on the board of directors of the U.S. Olympians and Paralympians LA Sports Council, Trident Swim Foundation, a member of the Athletes Advisory Committee for LA's 2028 bid for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. I've known John for about 15 years. Our kids went through school together and Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. We both have Eagle Scouts, and I am very honored to introduce John Moffet. Is he on?
I don't see him anywhere.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, he says not letting him in.
Not letting him in. I don't see where he wants to be admitted.
Okay.
Okay. Is he on the 810 or what is it, 810 or something?
Okay. Can you guys fill some time and I'll get
Eight,
link again.
Let me get my glasses on. 810. 10237 828. Is that what he's trying to get on? Is it?
No, he's trying to zoom in.
He's trying to zoom in. I don't see him trying to get in.
Hang on. Hi, John. Are you? Okay. Yeah. I sent you one this morning. The one we did the trial run on was just a temporary one that I did. Yep.
He doesn't have the number. Brian,
Okay.
I just sent you a link on your email to forward to him.
Okay, which email, Allie?
UBS, Brian
Okay.
at brian.ubs.
Okay, John, I'm going to send you another link. Something might have been corrupted.
Hold on. I can. Okay. Thanks.
And I already did the intro. Since you already know it, I don't think you missed anything.
Hold on.
Oh my God. Did I just go off again?
You're there.
Oh my
You're
God.
fine. We hear you.
One sec. Okay. I'm gonna try
Okay.
this. Okay. It's allowing me to join.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
He thinks he's in now.
Okay. Please wait. The meeting host will let you in.
Okay, so he just needs to be let in.
Marsha, let him in.
Marcia, do we see anything? Do we see him?
Marsha's been having a few issues today, so she might be frozen. It looks like she logged off. No, she's there.
Oh, I'm sorry, everyone.
It's just like being at the faculty center. There were always AV ghosts, remember? With
Marcia, are you on?
Should I try this new link that you just sent me?
Yeah, why don't you try that link? Now,
This one just reading to join the meeting.
okay, it might be the same, but the person running the meeting is in Arkansas and has some computer issues, so she might be.
Okay, so let me do this new one and see if this one works.
Okay.
Hold on.
we can hear him. That's the good thing. I mean, at least we have audio.
He's on my speakerphone. That's why on my phone.
Okay.
There's Marsha.
Join with video.
Yes.
Yay.
Connecting. Please wait. Meeting host will let you in soon.
Okay, Marcia. He's. Is he in?
Okay. I think I'm in.
Okay, John Moffet, you're on. Okay, he's on.
Okay, we see you, John.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm sorry for the technological gremlins. Hopefully we won't have any more, but it's great to be here. And should I just go ahead and get started?
Go ahead. I've already introduced you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, Brian, for inviting me. And it's just big thanks to all of you for allowing me to address the Westwood Village Rotary today. I love doing these kind of things. However, doing it in this way, I mean, it's new to all of us. I've never actually delivered a speech via Zoom. So hopefully we won't have any more issues with that. As Brian, I'm sure said, my name is John Moffet. I live in West LA. I'm actually down the street from Brian and around the corner from Alan Grant, who I understand is on the call. I have lived with my wife of 27 years, and we have 2 kids in college. However, like everybody else, like all college kids, they're home right now. So we're all blissfully living together. So I'm going to take control. I'm going to share the screen with you, and hopefully this will. Okay, hold on one sec. Okay. Are you seeing a black screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see a black screen.
Okay.
It has a lot of other junk on it, John. So you have
Okay.
to
So
enter the presentation.
it should be all black now.
All black.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, we're ready to go. So I don't know if Brian told you, but today we're going to be talking about the F word. It's not the F word that you think it is, that we're all very familiar with, but instead it's another F word, and that is failure. Failure is something that we all have to deal with. I'm also going to talk about success, and I'm going to talk about the stuff that perhaps is the most important, which is the stuff that lies in between, which is the inspiration and the pursuit. But let's talk about failure first. No one really likes to talk about it, but it's because failure hurts, but we all have to deal with it. And it's what teaches us, starting from very young children, how to deal with the ways of the world. And all kids know all about failure, but we then take that with us into our adult lives. And the pain of trying something and coming up short, still, as adults, it's always unpleasant. My earliest recollection of failure happened in the summer between 4th and 5th grade. I was 10 years old, and I was taking a swim lesson from this guy. And this is a local swim instructor hunk that all the moms thought was dreamy, but the kids were terrified of him, including me. And I was taking a class called Advanced Beginners. And it lasted, if I seem to remember, it lasted probably 6 weeks or so during the summer. And I got all the way to the end of the class, and he failed me. And he failed me because I couldn't kick breaststroke. And I remember very clearly my mom standing there on the deck, almost nose to nose with him, saying emphatically, "Why in the world does my son need to learn how to do breaststroke?" So as every summer, it wound down a little bit too soon, and I went on into 5th grade. I was totally a normal kid, maybe a little above average in academics, but certainly average or below average in athletics. And I had no aspirations for any sort of athletic career whatsoever. So that year, my inspiration came in a weird form. And it came in the form of a recurring dream that I kept having. And in that recurring dream, and perhaps it was in response to failing the swim lesson the summer before, I would be standing on the starting blocks in a swim race. And I had a secret weapon. I had these invisible fins on my feet that nobody else knew I had, but it made me really, really fast. And I would go in and I would swim and I would win. And 2 things of note, and one of the reasons that this recurring dream really stuck to me back then, and now obviously, is that I'd never really experienced any sort of winning in an athletic endeavor before. And number 2, I loved the feeling of swimming. I loved the feeling of swimming fast in these dreams. So was it symbolic of the future? You know, maybe it was. So the next summer, my parents gave me an ultimatum, and they weren't going to let me sit around the house. They said that I had to either go to summer school or go take another swim lesson. Well, duh, I was going to take another swim lesson, even though I harbored some trepidation from the previous summer and failing advanced beginners, but we changed it up a little bit. And this time I took a course from a guy who was the local swim coach in the town that I grew up in, Claremont. And he was teaching the elements of the 4 competitive strokes: butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, and freestyle. And instead of getting to the end of the course and finding out that I had failed, he actually pulled me aside and he told me, "John, you have talent and you have potential." And this really stuck with me because nobody had ever said that to me before. It never occurred to me that I had talent and potential. So he even took the next step and he told my parents the same thing. So they encouraged me to the next year to join the swim team. And so in 6th grade, beginning of 6th grade, I joined the swim team. And like everything, we all know this feeling. You're nervous when you start out. And I was really nervous. But I started to compete. And I started to discover that I was a natural. And that weird prophecy kind of thing that I had in those recurring dreams, well, it was kind of coming true because I was beating a lot of people pretty much within a year. And I loved the feeling of swimming fast. By the age 12, I was one of the best in SoCal. And by the time I aged up into 13, I was one of the best in the country. And, excuse me, I really couldn't believe what was going on. And people really started to take notice. And the local paper, the Claremont Courier, did a feature story on me. And inside that feature, they wrote that I was a young phenom. And that sticks out in my mind because my grandmother, for years afterwards, would always say, "Oh, John, my phenom." And that stuck with me. And but the bottom line is that I was kind of perplexed in that I had no idea why I was so good. It was just a gift. But what I was going absolutely bound and determined to do was to work hard and just see where it could take me. Well, success came very rapidly. And when I was 15 years old, I was world ranked in the breaststroke. And that's right, I said the breaststroke. That was the same stroke that I flunked advanced beginners because I couldn't do. So 5 years later, I had a little divine retribution against that swim instructor. Soon, I was competing on the national team in international competition. And clearly, the thought of the Olympics coming up in the next year in 1980 was seeping into my mind, and it was becoming more and more of reality. So another year passed, and I trained as hard as I could, and I had a fantastic summer of 1980. I swam better than I'd ever swam, and I made the 1980 Olympic team in the 200 breaststroke. I finished second in the Olympic trials. And by any measure, that was quite a feat. However, what I learned right away is that oftentimes with success, right on the heels, comes failure. This failure was not of my own doing, but this failure had something much bigger to do than me. And that was the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, in 1980, in protest of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, he required us, all Americans, to boycott our dreams of going to the Olympic Games in Moscow. So all of us, these are all my teammates. This is Carter, and this is in the White House. And for all of us, our dreams were dashed. And you would think for being a teenager, that it would be quite an honor and quite a privilege to meet the president. But I didn't really feel that way. It was not the dream come true it was supposed to be. It was a nightmare. And the reason is that all I wanted to do, and all my teammates wanted to do, is that we just wanted to compete. We wanted to complete that thing that we worked so hard for that we weren't able to do because our president told you that we can't. So I was gutted, but I was determined not to be defeated by this blow. I absolutely refused. So I created a plan. I was young, so I knew I had another 4 years in me to train. But I was also old enough to realize that I had a lot of things that I needed to prove. So I needed to finish high school, and I needed to get into college. All the while, I also needed to train for 1984. And a quote comes to mind, and it was a quote that I heard of that I used to motivate myself, and that was a quote by Thomas Edison. And it's, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." And in case any of you are wondering, yes, you do sweat in a pool. So once again, I got to work. I got to years and years of relentless and unyielding training. No one was going to prepare better than me. There was no way. So I got into Stanford, but while I was a full-time student, I also was training 4 to 6 hours a day for 1984. And I will be honest with you, it really kicked my butt. And to this day, it was the hardest thing that I've ever done. But I refused to give up. I absolutely refused to relent. One of the things that became evident while I was in the midst of this training was that when you're pursuing something as easy or as difficult and crazy as going to the Olympic Games, very few people will believe in you 100%. Maybe your mom, that's about it. But it's a very solitary sort of pursuit. It's very personal, and it can be quite lonely. In addition, working hard, it's just downright painful. It's monotonous. It's hard. And I will tell you, even Olympic caliber athletes, most workouts, 99.9% of the workouts, you do not want to be there, but you have to keep pushing yourself through that. And the thing that kept really, the reward cords kept coming because I had a lot of success along the way. The individual championships came. I ended up winning 5 NC2A individual championships. And so did the team championships. Of the 4 years that I was at Stanford, we won the team championship twice. And so with all of this came some of the best times of my life, with the teammates and the friends that I'd formed, and then of course, all my college friends and the college experience in general. In 1984, I went on to break the world record at the Olympic trials to make the Olympic team in 3 events. I broke the world record in the 100 breaststroke, beating my nemesis, Steve Lundquist. And suddenly I was the favorite to win gold. A dream come true, right? I learned all too well that in 1980, sometimes you're not in control of everything. This is on the first day of the Olympics. This is my first event. And the first day of the Olympic Games in Los Angeles at the Olympic pool over in USC. And I tore a muscle in my leg in the prelims. Steve Lundquist, who's also there in that picture, he went on to win the gold medal, and he went on to break my world record. And in a blink, my dreams came to an end. My other 2 events, I had to drop out because the injury was too severe. Strangely, I've gone back and I've looked for photographs of me, snapshots of me at the Olympic Games during my Olympic experience, and this is one of the few that I have. And I remember it clearly because I went back behind the stadium to see friends who wanted to see me. And I remember distinctly, I wanted to be any place but there. And this was the beginning of a very difficult lesson for me. I searched for some sort of meaning behind all of this, and I struggled to understand why it happened. All I could figure is that sometimes bad things happen absolutely for no reason whatsoever, and you just have to move on. A year later, I was back at the Olympic pool at USC, the 1984 Olympic pool. This time, I was being interviewed by legendary filmmaker Bud Greenspan. Bud Greenspan was interviewing me for his official film of the 1984 Olympics, 16 Days of Glory, and he was doing a feature story on me. This would go on to change my life, and I think it also provided just that little bit of meaning that I was searching for about why this all happened. Bud became my mentor, and after college, I went into a career in entertainment. And once I did that, I realized I was the same as I was when I was 11, when I was starting something new. I had to start at the bottom. I didn't have any respect. And I had to claw and struggle and climb my way back to the top. I have been fortunate enough to, years later, win an Emmy Award for The Amazing Race. And one of the first calls that I made the next morning after this was Bud, my mentor Bud, to give him the good news. And I remember very clearly, he had quite a distinctive voice. I remember him very clearly saying, "Well, John, now we're colleagues." And I went away from that call and I thought to myself, wow, colleagues with Bud Greenspan. I can chalk that one up to a success. I've been able to win 3 Emmys in my career. But the big wins, the awards, the gold medals, all that stuff is just, that's the stuff people see. What they don't see is the years of toil and the years of hard work that goes into every single one of these successful triumphs or victories. And still, for me, aspiration is uncomfortable and sometimes downright painful. Despite the successful moments that I've been able to have in my life and the blessings that have come with them, I, of course, have had to endure a lot of failures, as everybody does, as everybody going through life does. And in these times, there is no fanfare. There's no photos taken. And each time I fall short, however, I try to get the will and pull together and get a little bit better at picking myself up and looking for that next inspiration. I still rarely, but every once in a while, I will get asked for an autograph. And I will oftentimes put this as the caption above my name. You can't win if you can't lose. And to me, it's inspiring because I get comfort in the stark, no BS message about the reality of what it's truly like to work hard towards something and the risks that come with that. Today, I have been involved with the Olympic movement, and I was proudly and honored to be part of bringing the LA Olympics, the 2028 Olympic Games. The Olympics have sucked me back in. And since then, I have become president of Southern California Olympians and Paralympians Association. And I have been getting more and more involved with the local sports and Olympic movement, and as well as the National Olympic movement. But still, you know how it goes. You have these moments, but life still goes on, and it plays out in the same cycle, that same cycle of aspiration. There's, of course, that F word, but failure is part of living a full life. And I try to tell myself after something disappointing happens, is that not to let failure define me. Instead, I try as hard as I can to let failure define where I do next. There's, of course, success, and just sit back and enjoy it. And then, of course, there's that gooey, difficult to consume stuff in the middle, inspiration and pursuit. I don't have any medals to show for my Olympic aspirations, but what I do have is I have a life that has been transformed by the inspiration and the pursuit of being an Olympian. And this is a lesson that I would have learned regardless of whether or not I actually went to the Olympics. And perhaps even more important, and the message that I would like to give to you, is that this is a gift that's attainable to anybody who dares to put in the hard work and dedication that it takes to go after their dreams. I am happy to answer any questions for you, if you have any.
Hi, this is Philip Gabriel. Really happy to have you. It's an amazing story.
Oh, thank you.
Let me ask you a question. I've noticed a lot of really great athletes, really good at what they do, are terrible teachers. Do you think the second coach was just a born teacher, with the first coach, maybe he had all the accolades and he's just a terrible teacher, just didn't know how to teach? Is that possible?
You mean the person that failed me?
The person.
Yeah,
maybe
you
possibly just
know-
didn't know how to coach. He knew his stuff, he just couldn't coach it.
Yeah, he was actually a college coach. I mean, and when I was 12, I was so much faster than anybody else on my team that he allowed me to go train with his college team. So I was training with the college guys in Claremont. Whether or not he was a bad coach, I will tell you this, that when I saw him years later, long after I retired, he said to me, I actually saw him randomly, and he said to me that he didn't initially see my talent. He was not on the lookout for talent. And it taught him that you have to be constantly on the lookout because you don't know where it's going to come from. And there was an irony in this, is that the person that he failed in advanced beginners was also the greatest swimmer that he had ever been associated with, and helped his career because he could say he coached John Moffet. So to answer your question, I think it's nebulous. I think he realized his mistake. And I do think that spotting talent, especially in 10-year-olds, is a very, very difficult thing to do. I think he just assumed we were all lame. Now, I was, of course, lame like everybody else, but that's where I chalk it up to, if that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you.
John, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
You have on the screen there, failure, inspiration, pursuit, success, but in the chronology of your achievements, as you started out after failure, you had some success. Does the inspiration come from that initial success, or does the success follow the inspiration? I mean, I'm trying to see which one comes first.
The inspiration follows the failure, and you've got to get yourself back up, and you've got to be inspired by that failure and define what you do next because of that failure. The successes, it's inevitable. When you have success, you're going to have failures. When you're trying to do something, especially when you're trying to do something as high level as compete at the Olympics, you're going to fail because what you're aspiring to is so much bigger than yourself. So it definitely, the inspiration was something that followed failure. Success, I think, was something that got me through the hard times. And people look at my career and they say, okay, you didn't win any gold medals. But if you were to use my career and look at it, I was able to achieve almost everything else in a swimming career that you could possibly achieve. National championships, world records, Olympic teams, you name it. But I just have that one elusive one that I wasn't able to get, which was the gold medal, which of course is the most important one.
John?
Yes.
I wonder what drew you to the breaststroke. Was it that coach, or you were naturally gifted to kick it?
It's the latter. I am a born breaststroker. And breaststrokers are considered kind of the freaks of swimming because you're either born to do it or you really can't do it very well. Now, you can train and get better. So to answer your question, that was just a little twist of irony that I failed because I couldn't do breaststroke. But the fact of the matter is that I was just immensely talented, and I was just way faster than almost anybody until I got to the top echelons of the world competition.
It's a wonderful stroke.
I agree with you, but it's very, very painful to swim fast. And it tears up your body.
And it doesn't show a lot of flutter like the butterfly and the freestyle. It's a quiet stroke.
Yeah, and with that, because most everything's underwater, everything is underwater except your head and your breathing, it takes a great deal of strength and quickness in order to do the breaststroke properly.
Thank you.
I'm interested in what happened to your leg.
Yeah. Well, what happened to my leg was kind of a fluke. When you're training at that level, injuries you're always dealing with injuries in some way, shape, or form. And what happened is I strained a muscle. It was actually the muscle in my groin. It's called an adductor magnus. And it's the muscle between your legs that is responsible for squeezing and pushing back on your kick.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had, a couple weeks before the Olympics, And during training, I'd strained that. And I did what I always do. Whenever you're injured, you ice it and you rest. So I iced it, I rest. I think I took some ibuprofen. I did the normal things. I was under like doctor supervision. There were team doctors everywhere in the training camp. And I promptly forgot about it. After 2 or 3 days, I felt much better. But clearly I hadn't let it completely heal, because in the prelims of my first race, I'll tell you kind of a blow by blow. It was a surreal experience because there were about 15,000 people at the Olympic Games watching everybody swim. And they introduced me, and it was the first male event in the Olympic Games. And so there was a lot of excitement about it. And plus Steve Lundquist and I were rivals. So there was a lot of press and there's a lot of people talking about it. And I got up for the prelims, and the way it works is you do the preliminaries in the morning and then you do the finals at night. The preliminaries, what they do is they take the first 8 times. If you're in the first 8, you're in the finals, okay? So the preliminaries is just the qualifying. So in the preliminaries, I swam, and I remember swimming and thinking to myself, wow, this is really easy. And I felt really good, really, really good. And in breaststroke, you touch the wall and then you turn and you go underwater and you do what's called an underwater pull. So you're underwater for 5 or 10 seconds off the wall. And as I came up for my breath, I could hear the crowd went berserk. And I didn't know that, but I was just a few hundredths of a second off my world record pace. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's just the morning, I'm swimming well. And you don't want to, you want to save yourself for the big time, which is the finals. And so I took a few strokes that it's called building into it, where you don't come off the wall and you go all out. I built into it. And it was about the 3rd or 4th stroke off the wall. I said, okay, let's bring it home. And bam, the muscle let go. It just shredded. And what's weird is I didn't do it. Usually people tear things or break things by smashing into something. This muscle, it was just the force that I was exerting against the water. The muscle just went. It pulled apart, and it's a big muscle. And so I swam like the last 35 or 40 meters of the race, and I'm like, uh-oh. And in fact, if you can watch, well, you can't, yes, you can watch the race on 16 Days of Glory. They show my prelims race. And when I touched the wall, I did the fastest time in history. So I owned the first and second fastest time in history. Everybody went nuts. This is supposed to be the biggest moment of my life. And here, my leg, I could feel it. My leg just went. And you know when you're injured. You know when it's bad versus a nagging injury. And ironically, you can actually see me, and it's not right, and people made fun of me for it, but I reach down and I look up into the sky and I mouth the other F word. You can clearly make that out because I was absolutely panicked. The day turned out to be completely horrendous. I was surrounded by doctors. And if you've also been injured, you also know that it gets worse and worse and worse as the inflammation sets in and really starts to get sore. And the doctors were trying to take care of me because I had the finals in a few hours. And I just remember thinking, okay, my dreams are done. My dreams are done. And I got into warm up and I couldn't kick breaststroke. I just physically couldn't do it. It was too painful. And so the doctors pulled me aside. I only swam 2 laps. I got back out. And the doctors pulled me aside and they say, do you want the most extreme treatment that we can give you legally? And I said, yes. And they said, you'll probably injure this more by doing this. And I said, yes, give it to me. And they injected me with local anesthetic, a big needle all through the inside of my thigh, multiple. It was just, and then what they did is they wrapped my leg as tightly as they could in adhesive tape to support the muscle. And by then it was, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes before my event was up. And then, I was starting to get numb. I was actually numb from about my belly button down to my knee on the right side. And I said, I've got to warm up. I've got to try it out. I can't just get on the blocks. And so what I did is the pool was empty, except there were 15,000 people in the stands. And I went into the diving well, the same one where Greg Louganis won his gold medals. And they were setting up for the medal ceremony for the women's 100 free. So there was nothing happening on deck. There were a few officials. I was escorted out and I got in to warm up. And I just gathered all my will and I was able to barely kick. A few minutes later, I toweled off and I could feel every eyeball in the place upon me. A few minutes later, I toweled off and I went out and I swam and I ended up getting 5th. And then that was it. I had to drop out of my other 2 events.
John, I have a question.
Sure.
With the cancellation because of the Olympics.
And Marcia?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's after 1:30. So I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. If you, John, I don't know if you can stay on for a few minutes still.
Sure, if people have a few more questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to thank you though officially and let you know that our club has made a donation to the Polio Plus Foundation in your name. You've been incredibly inspiring. So
thank you.
So
That's
much.
nice.
Again, people will stay on and Marcia has another question, as you know, but some people may log off and it's just because they do have 1:30 meetings. So thank you again. And I've missed you all. So just to officially end, thank you for coming today. And John, I personally want to thank you. My daughter's on. I don't know if you can unshare your screen for just a moment.
Hello.
John?
Oh, well, yes, of course. Hold on.
If not, it's okay. Next
there we
week.
Go. There we go.
Next week, Ed Jackson will be hosting our meeting, and he will be having, the topic is from Reed Brightman, the worst vacation souvenir ever, recovering from COVID-19. So I welcome you all back next Thursday and to stay on today to continue with our Olympian. And John, just personally, my daughter's on and she was a swimmer with the Y. And she was a Southern California champion in like backstroke and freestyle and second and butterfly, but she never ever medaled in breaststroke, ever. Like that was a hard stroke. So.
Like I said, you're born to do breaststroke.
Okay, well, thank you again. And back to your questions or back to work.
All right, thank you.
I was just wondering if you're in contact with any of the disappointed Olympians because of the Olympics getting canceled because of COVID.
Yes, I actually, some of my best friends are on that team. And yes, we talk a lot.
You do.
We, last week, I believe, we had a big town hall over Zoom and it was hosted by Edwin Moses, the famous hurdler. And Anita DeFrance was there and, some really, really big names. And we all just kind of, talked about it. So it's something, because I'm involved with the Olympic movement and there are a handful of us who were on that boycotted team, we do talk about it. And being an Olympian is very much a shared experience. I can talk to an Olympian from years later and we still would have a shared experience. And this is a very unique shared experience. And all of us have dealt with it in different ways. I myself, the pain is kind of dulled to an ache, but there are people that to this day are still very affected by it.
John, this is Ed Gold. Excuse me, I have a couple of comments. And one is, if you look at the 1980 Olympics and the cancellation, we had a Rotarian who was involved in the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. In fact, he made a district governor. His name was Bill Goodwin.
Wow.
One of his roles doing the '84 Olympics was to be the point person for the Russian or the Soviet Union at the time delegation to LA to look at the venues and go over the Olympics that were going to be held in 1984. And he would take them to different venues and all of that sort of thing. And they were highly critical. But Bill Goodwin's perception of what was going on is that the Russians or the Soviet Union was just jerking the United States around because we had boycotted, because of that idiot Carter, the 1980 Olympics. So they were over there to pull the United States chain. They had no indication, no desire to ever participate in the 1984 Olympics. And Bill Goodwin, our member of the Rotary, had to put up with their baloney. But anyway, when they got back, the Soviet Union and all their satellites pulled out of the '84 Olympics. That was a given. And that was a shame. But anyway, getting on to Bud Greenstrand, I remember a number of years ago watching a documentary by Bud Screen, and it had to do with people who were sorely disappointed by the Olympics. In other words, who came there, got injured, or came in second, or something happened. Were you part of that documentary? Do you recall?
Well, I wasn't interviewed again if it was like newer interviews, but my segment might have been included. I don't recall. I do know I will, every 4 years they will re-air 16 Days of Glory, and people will say, "Oh, I didn't know that about you," but no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think you were in this documentary. It was a number of years ago, because it didn't have in the nomenclature the definition glory. But what I wanted to make a comment is, I went to Duke University, and there was a guy in my class of 1958, who in 1955, as a freshman, was breaking world records in the 100-yard dash, the 200-yard dash, the 220 low hurdles. And he he was the fastest man in the world. His name was Dave Sim at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying out for the 1956 Olympics in Australia. And he, and I think it was a guy, can't recall the guy from Iowa or something that he was contesting against, but he pulled a ham and had to pull out of the 1956 Olympics. So this was a big, big disappointment for him. But then you fast forward to 1960 in the Olympics in Rome, he was still running, even though he graduated in 1958 and he was going to the Duke Med School. Anyway, in 1960, he came in a nanosecond behind a guy named Harren Army from Germany in the 100 meters. And they still claim that there was a jump start by the German who beat him. But then he had one more opportunity to win a gold medal, because he lost out in 56 in Australia, 1960 in Rome in the 100. And he was in the 4x100. And we were long odds-on favorite to win. He got in there, and one of the runners for the United States passed the baton outside the required area. So the United States, even though breaking the world's record and giving Dave Sim a gold medal, got disqualified. And that was the end. So Dave Sim, arguably the fastest runner during that whole period, was denied a gold medal. And they had Greenspan had a special segment of people who were clearly disappointed in the Olympics. And one was Dave Sim. And Dave Sim never spoke to the person in the rest of his life who passed out of the lane, but it was inexcusable to do that, because they didn't do that. If you fast forward, the United States in all of these relay races have been disqualified probably 10 times for breaking the rules, passing outside the lanes and so forth, and they never could get that straight. But that was a very sad occasion. and he was really annoyed at being denied. So you were very lucky. I could say one other thing. I won my first swimming race in 1940. Believe it or not, I was the fastest swimmer in my high school in 7th grade, and we had no swimming team, no pool, no Y, nothing. So I couldn't swim at all. So I'm very envious of you, where you started out at age 11 to be able to swim and have Olympic type coaching and swim all the time. The only consolidation I did is I was intramural swimming champion at Duke by going out. I didn't go out for the swimming team because at the time I was playing soccer for the varsity, and that coincided or it erupted. And I wasn't a trained swimmer, so I didn't do very well. But anyway, I found your story very interesting. One last question, since I should have a question. How many hours a day when you started swimming at 11 did you have to put in to be a world champion?
I actually started out no more than 2 hours a day. And I carried that through until I was 16 or so. After I made my first Olympic team, I didn't start doing double workouts, which are morning workouts and afternoon workouts, until after that, because my parents and my coaches, they didn't want me to injure myself. They wanted to let my body develop a little bit at a slower pace. And I didn't do weights. So I was a little bit different in that at the beginning, I really eased into it. But by the time I was in college, it was insane.
One other question, if I may ask. When you were breaking these world records or in high school, how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
Okay, so you
I
were
shrunk.
Yeah, but you weren't a giant. So 6'1" at the time. And what was your weight in order to do all the swimming?
In '84, my prime, I was about 190 pounds.
Okay, yeah, but you were a solid, yeah. Most of the swimmers today, I see some of them are really huge people, especially when you're doing like a stroke like the butterfly. I mean, when you have to get out.
It varies. It varies. Michael Phelps is a big guy. Yeah, it definitely varies, but there's a lot of smaller swimmers. Ryan Lochte is basically my size. He's not huge. So
Now, do you ever compete in masters, or have you given up swimming?
I like to swim because I still like what it feels like, but I'm not interested in competing.
Yeah, because when I turned 50, I went into the masters, never trained, didn't have any lessons, and I was very successful at all 4 strokes at the age group of 50. But I was also competing against guys who swam at Yale and Indiana, which was a big disadvantage of these people who knew what they were doing. But anyway, your presentation was fascinating.
Thank you.
Brian, did you have a question?
No, I was just trying to, Ed had a lot of questions, so I just want to make sure everyone who wanted to ask a question had an opportunity to.
Yeah.
So are there any more questions?
Yes, it's Adele. I used to be too, and I got to the national team and so on, especially up in Canada. I got few medals to show. And I was curious to know what kind of cross training either you did or you recommend for a swimmer. That you mentioned incidentally that you didn't get into weights. And
yeah.
I don't do weights either. But what cross training?
It was mostly to prevent injuries. Strength is not, I was always plenty strong. So I decided to work on other things, such as flexibility and my, like I always wanted to be the fittest person. I was always the strongest, so that wasn't a problem. The cross training that I did, my cross training of preference was cycling. But in the early seasons we would run, especially in college, we would run. And then a lot of stretching, a lot of stretching. And the only extent to the weight training that I ever did was speed circuits. However, today it's much different. There's all kinds of different sort of cross training that you do. Like I get a lot of benefit out of doing yoga because it keeps me limber, and it keeps me from getting injured. But those are basically the things that I did back then.
Beautiful. Thank you. Enjoyed your presentation very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, are there any other questions? Anyone? Brian, did you want to say something? I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us. This is really fascinating, really interesting.
Well, thank you for having me. And everyone, please take care. I think we're all kind of experiencing in different ways kind of a strange failure of sorts where we can't go out and pursue very much. But I hope everybody's staying safe. And thank you again, everyone, for having me.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Okay,
Yes.
bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye, thank you.
Oh,
Thank
hey,
you, Brian.
Marcia.
Yes.
Marcia. So
Yeah.
John would like a recording of this. So how does he?
Well, I'll get it from told the iCloud to record it, and they'll send me an email, and then I'll send it on to you.
All right, perfect.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Brian?
Buddy.
Yeah.
I wonder whether I can get the link for the video as well as the bio. I'm just doing the notes. For
Yeah. We're posting it on the website, wvrc.net. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Right.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Brian. Thank you, Marcia.